So morning. Well, morning for us, evening for you.
Yeah, 4:40. Yeah.
4:40. Okay. We've got the lovely David Cohen from Australia with me today. Unfortunately, Rachel can't join us today, David, because she's really suffering with a headache and toothache. So, Rachel, we really hope you
Get
have
well
speedy
soon.
recovery, get well soon.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about all sorts of, sort of things today and have a good general update about what's happening on your side of the world, what's happening on ours, and quite a few things that's happening in between. But before we really get cracking in, I'm just going to do the normal introduction to people to say, look, we're going to really be behaving ourselves today. But if for any reason the full video isn't shown, if you're watching it for the first time on YouTube, you know to click on the links below to watch the full video. But hopefully we'll be able to leave the full video up there.
Yeah.
So what's happening in your world? What's been happening for you and in Australia over the last couple of weeks?
So actually, I wanted to start with something quite positive, and it's something that I've been getting some signs from the universe. So you know how these signs can come in any different way. So many different ways that you can see these signs. And about 2 weeks ago, I was walking around the block just for my daily walk, and I listened to the song "Hold the Line" by Toto. You know that song?
Mm,
Yeah. And I hadn't
yeah.
listened to it in ages, and that's probably why I chose it. But when I came back home, I had a comment on one of my videos, and I logged onto YouTube, and the first video that popped up was a video by Claire Hocking O'Kell, and
Mm,
the thumbnail said "Hold the Line," and I thought,
wow.
that's really interesting. Like, what's this message they're trying to tell me? And I think that it could have just been, it could very well have been, or that we get to choose whatever meaning we want, right? So I thought, well, I'm thinking like things are happening, just be patient. That's really the message that I got from it. And then on Friday, just 2 days ago, the same thing happened. So I was walking to the store, and I was looking at my iPod, and I chose this song by this Australian band. The song was called Secrets. And as I got to the main strip, where all the shops are, this guy walked into his shop, and his T-shirt said "No Secrets." And
Wow.
and so I was thinking, that's really weird. And like, if I had been a couple of seconds earlier or later, I would have missed him. So to me, that means that some big truths are going to be revealed. I mean, how else could you say it, right? But another thing, which is really weird, and I haven't told many people this because people probably think I'm crazy, but I have a light dimmer switch in my room here, and this has been happening for a long time, and I only kind of just really pieced it together recently because it's been happening again. I used to turn the light on, and the light would be dimmed. And I was like, who would be playing? No one would be playing with the switch. Like, I don't think anyone would be playing it within the house. And now I've got this new light bulb. I think it's an LED light bulb, so you just can't dim it. If you turn it all the way to the left, nothing really happens.
Yeah.
But there have been many times in the last few months where I'd come into my room and I turn the light on and it'd be flickering. And then I check the dimmer and it's like halfway to the left. And no one would be messing with it. And then last
Yeah.
Sunday, I walked into my room, turned the light on, and it was black. Nothing happened. I mean, it didn't turn on. And I checked the switch and it was all the way to the left. And so first of all, that's really strange. And second of all, it shouldn't have even worked, because the dimming switch doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, they've been trying to get my attention. Whoever it is, whatever it is out there is trying to get my attention. Maybe that period of darkness that we keep talking about is coming. I don't know. Uh, so
I agree with you. I think there's so many things. I mean, I woke up the other night and just looked at my watch and it was 444.
yeah,
And I don't normally get a lot of numbers things. I think a lot of the time, I've lost my watch. That's really interesting. So
mm.
about 2 weeks ago, I've
It
only
was four
wear my
four
watch.
four. I bet it was 444 when you said that because it's 4:45 now. So I reckon you
Oh,
probably hit
wow, it
it.
probably was 444 when you said that. And there's
Yeah.
been all these synchronicities for numbers, which are weird for me. But it was very weird that I lost my watch because, this whole issue that time is an illusion. And then also we've got some foxes. We live in the beautiful countryside. We've got lots of wildlife that comes into our garden at night. And I've got some foxes and a lovely fox cub that I feed each evening when I'm doing the last checks on the horses. And their behavior has been different the last 3 or 4 days. They've sort of been different.
Mm.
I've got some more smudging sticks and things like this. There's lots of weird things, as you say, that people have been saying that are just coming into the forefront. And everyone I know is feeling, I know we say it a lot, but a different shift in energy. And there's some very interesting things coming out that we'll talk about in a minute in terms of little snippets that are starting to come out in the media as well. And I get this feeling there's something really big about to happen. I mean, you and I were just talking off air before we went on about the censorship. So this weekend, the censorship seems to have gone mad again on certain platforms, whereas for a while it had dimmed down again. And it's not just, you know, you and me feeling this, it's sort of everyone who's talking about these issues.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. You know, you can choose to see everything as a negative or a positive. I think you and I are choosing to see it as a fact that, look, you know, they're having another last ditch attempt to stop this message going out because we are getting near to the end game.
Let's hope so, because it's really, you know, talking about the end game, they always talk about Israel being last, and obviously the leader of Israel was removed not long ago. So that's really interesting. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I watched that with real interest, and all these things, it's funny because there's been so much criticism for people saying things and dates and deadlines not coming true. And I was thinking when we go back to the leader of Israel being named, so I was thinking about all the things I've learned through the process and the fact that I've lost my watch. Now, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't take my watch sort of outside the house, so that I know it's here somewhere. And I have dowsing crystals as well. And every so often they'll just completely disappear. And then I'll find them somewhere really obvious, and no one else in the family's moved them. So it was just like I wasn't seeing it at the time. You know, it's not because sometimes you're not meant to use your watch. You're not meant to concentrate on time. You're not meant to use these external tools. You're meant to go in front of yourself. So when I saw about the Israel leader being removed, you know, all these things that we've been told for the last year, Israel would be last. There were a lot of synchronicities, you know, just after or just before, I can't remember the exact time of it, the G7 fiasco.
The G7 was interesting.
Obviously the meeting with Mr. B and the Russian leader, you know, supposedly happening and both the G7 summit and that meeting with Mr. B and Mr. P was in a very important historical or spiritual places as well.
Okay.
So there's been an awful lot happen over the last couple of weeks, which to me symbolizes what we've been told by the people in the know for the last sort of year and a bit, that we are really near the end game. And I just seeing more little snippets coming out in the mainstream news as well, very, very little ones, but they're starting, different people are starting. This happens every time Coco comes. So yeah, I think that is massively significant, because throughout this, obviously Israel have been really hit hard by everything that's been happening. So this has definitely got to be a sign, and I'm taking it as a very good sign. And it's interesting when we're talking about the timescales as well, because everyone talks about 5D and time being an illusion and living in, you know, parallel time scales, living all at once, etc. And I've really felt that recently. Everyone I've spoken to has sort of almost said they've lost all concept of time. And perhaps this is the message, you know, as humans, everything has been leading towards rush, you know, everything's instant gratification. And perhaps this whole process has been a really good lesson for us to really step into the moment and let go of this attachment to knowing exactly when everything's going to happen.
Yeah, I could speak personally that I feel like time is just flying by. Like I think we even said this last episode, last chat we had, where you wake up on Monday morning and all of a sudden it's Friday, and it just seems like my cat looks exactly like that. One of my cats.
She's so cute, but she normally ends up pushing my computer off, which is why I'm holding her on my lap.
Right. Yeah.
Suddenly the whole lot will crash down.
Yeah. But yeah, time does seem to be going really quickly. And I don't know, was it Michelle Fielding who said that, or somebody said that maybe time is actually being sped up?
Yeah.
Is that
I can't remember who said it. It might well have been Michelle. But it's weird because I agree that in terms of my day-to-day life, it is definitely sped up. I mean, the last year I've had some very important family anniversaries this last weekend, and I can't believe this has been a year ago, so like a year since I lost my father. So in that respect, it really feels, and on a day-to-day, as you say, the week, you wake up 1 minute it's Monday, and then before you know it, it's Friday. But in the other respect, I feel I'm getting younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's just because I've just found, I mean, this links into the censorship for me. So the censorship, it's almost the more the censorship tries to stop you, the more I feel able to actually really come out and say exactly what I've been wanting to say. Because for so long, it's so drummed into us that you've got to be so careful to be politically correct in everything you say.
Yeah.
And that really hinders the natural flow. And I think, watch it, Coco. So I think, it's almost, again, like everything is backfiring on everyone. The actual censorship for me personally, and I did have this conversation with another good friend, it's almost like the more they try to censor you, the more you just feel completely relaxed, being completely honest about what you're feeling and what you want to say, but also not attached to who listens to it. Letting go of that attachment as well.
Well, I think that political correctness has really done a massive disservice, to society in so many ways, because for that very reason that we can't talk about certain things is one of the reasons why we're in this mess in the first place. And it's, and it's not just there. There's a bunch of other examples I could give, which I won't go into because people may get offended, but that's my point, You just can't say certain things. And if you could, maybe people would live their life a little bit differently,
Exactly. I think I think that's a really important point that you've just said about, I know we've spoken about this before. I've really been looking about how we live our lives. And there's so many positives that have come out of this last year, if we chose to look at it. So everything that we go through in life is a learning experience. And everyone over the last year and a half have had very individual personal journeys, because of what's been happening in their immediate environment, their aspirations, their dreams, their families. Healthcare and everything is obviously very, very different for everyone. Where you live has a big impact, in terms of not only what restrictions have been put on you, but also if you are under restrictions, what you're able to do in your daily life. I live in the middle of the countryside, so there's never been a time where I can't go out for beautiful walks in nature, but other people haven't had that luxury at all. So everything's been very individual, but I really think you can choose to look at everything in terms of what have I gained from this. And certainly for me over the last year, I've gained so much. I've gained some really amazing new friends that I feel so connected with, and that I can have such honest conversations with that perhaps I couldn't have in other of my social circles. So that's been a real blessing. The disclosure, when a lot of talk about the fear side of things, and throughout this point, personally, which might be because I've, compared to some people, have quite an easy run of it, but I haven't felt slipping into the fear mode. I felt frustration, but not fear, because everything I found out has always made sense of things that I just haven't been able to explain over the last 20 years. So for me, it's so much more clarity than confusion, because things that I've not been comfortable about for years and years and years, now you realize, well, there's a whole load of other people that see this exactly the same way as I do. And actually, when you understand what the end game of the other side, shall we say, the darker side is, then it makes sense. All these things make sense. Was when you don't know what the end game is, and I know David Icke always says that, you can't understand why any of these things would happen. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, because the why question is the big question, isn't it? Like, why would they do that? And because it makes no sense to a normal person, but these people aren't normal, by any stretch of the imagination. So but and it's a difficult question to answer, because until you know the full picture, you can't then tell someone the answer, what, the reason why, because you don't know. But when you do know, and then you tell them, then they think you're crazy. So it's kind of a bit of a lose-lose, but then you just have to remind them. You have to remind them that, a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago, if someone said to you that this would happen and we'd all be, muzzled and locked down, no one could travel, and small businesses would be decimated, and so would the economy, they wouldn't have believed you either. So.
Exactly, and I think that's the point. It's sort of no one would have believed it, and it does seem fantastical, but actually, the clarity you get when you understand the why, and why these certain people that are not rational, we can't and we don't want to step into their minds. But once you accept that difference, and you accept that their belief systems are driving them to behave in these particular ways, then for me everything sort of fell into place, and it answered so many questions for me. And of course some people don't see that, and yes, it is quite a nasty realization, but these things are happening anyway. So quantum physics tells us that when we observe something, it changes the way that thing acts. And this has been a real game changer for me, because I've known that theoretically anyway. But for me, I think that's why I haven't stepped into so much of the fear side of things. I've definitely had frustration and anger. Don't make me wrong. I've had a lot of frustration and anger. Yep. But when you realize the more of us that are observing what's really happening, that by the laws of quantum physics, we can then start changing the reality of what's actually happening. And I find that really, really powerful. They really have proven that sort of nothing happens unless something observes it happening.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things I think people have a hard time wrapping their head around. And, I was in that position too for a while, because when you know that a certain group of people that are doing things to control things in the physical realm, you feel powerless to do anything. But
yeah.
The power of thought and the collective consciousness is so powerful. That's why they have to put all this stuff in movies, because they need us thinking about it. Because if we don't think about it, we're not going to create it. And
exactly.
And so we really do have the power.
Yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. And also, I've realized why I haven't watched any of these movies. So, for me personally, it's been fairly easy, because I've never shown an interest in politics. I don't watch many movies at all. So therefore, I haven't been bombarded by those influences. And sometimes the saying ignorance is bliss is true, because you haven't got to unlearn all that stuff. Classic example is when I'm working with people with the health of their animals. Hello, Coco. When I'm working with people with the health of their animals, if you've been told that, you feed your dog or cat kibble, a dried biscuit, you inoculate them every year, you put all these harmful chemicals on them once a month, for things like that, that becomes indoctrinated to you in terms of the way that you do things, because that's what you've been taught is norm. So it's actually harder for someone who's been told all those things to have to unlearn everything that they've thought was right in the first place, and relearn it. Whilst for those people who haven't had that brainwashing, they haven't got all that stuff to unlearn, so you can move forward. On other areas, on say the medical and scientific side of things, which is my real sort of passion, I've had to unlearn a lot. I've had to unlearn a lot of what I've been taught over the years. But then what I've realized is it never resonated properly in the first place. Yeah. So it's really great. And I think this is why I love speaking to all the different people, because we've all got different areas of knowledge. Some of my friends, like when I speak to Mel Kay, she's just amazing on the political side of things.
Yeah, she's
and on
great.
the current event side of things. I mean, she's just on a different scale of that. So for me, I learned so much for that, whilst I'm much more on the sort of natural health, natural remedies side of things. So I can help people with that side of things. And then other people are very good at the tools and techniques about how to really start using our intuition, our consciousness in a different way. And everyone's got those little bits of the jigsaw puzzle. And I think it's putting into context. We've talked a lot about community and about building communities in the new world moving forward.
Mm.
But this global community of sharing these resources and realizing you don't have to do it all. You just need to know someone else who's good at that bit.
Yeah.
I felt a really lovely sort of global community. You and I, we can reach out to each other when something weird comes up. We can get straight on and sort of say, well, this is my experience of it. This is mine, and learn from it.
Mm.
The magnetism is a really example of that, because there's so many reasons that would be very fearful of why that's happening, but there's also other really brilliant reasons that people like Michelle and other spiritual teachers and Janine have come up with, or that we knew intrinsically between ourselves, where it could be a really positive reason why that's happening to certain people.
Mm. Yeah, I was the only thing that I kind of really was thinking about was the meat with the the people were doing magnets on the meat, and the chicken and stuff. So that was really interesting. That kind of got me thinking a lot. But I don't eat meat. But so it could be anywhere though. It could be in the air. It could be on the
Exactly.
chemtrails. Could be in the water. It could be in the. But these things are so small. Like they're way smaller than a grain of salt, which sounds crazy. But actually, I've got a video. I'll share it with you. Where this guy talks all about that. About
Brilliant.
the goo and stuff. It's really, really interesting. But
also it's like, how do you feel in yourself, isn't it? Because let's face it, for the last sort of 100 years, we as everything that's living on the planet, the animals, the plants, the humans, we've all been bombarded with so much rubbish, but we're still here. And the good beauty is that nature and us humans as part of nature, we're so adaptable, aren't it? And what I love is like, okay, you can look at these things and it is confusing. I mean, no one expects to be magnetic, but equally we can then sort of say, well, actually I'm feeling fine, I'm feeling good, there could be some positive reasons for this as well. This is what I'm going to do to perhaps feed my body and my mind a bit more with all the positives, just to counter out any negatives. So there's so many positive things people can do as well, aren't there?
Yeah, and just really, I guess, having a positive spin. And if you have had the cure and you are magnetic as well, who knows what the reason for that is? But we do really kind of just need to see the silver lining somehow in it, if we can. I think there's always a way.
I think so. I think there's always a way. I mean, what are some, because you've had some amazing transformations over the last year, haven't you? What are some of the real positives that you've taken personally out of it?
Yeah, it's definitely been a very big growth experience, for sure, especially since I started putting out more videos, since February. Like, I really just noticed that I've stepped into my power. I'm caring less. I still care about people, but I care less about what they think, because we can't really always be caring about what people think, if you know what I mean, because it's our thoughts that get us into the positions we're in the first place. And if we're dealing with people, like I shared that message with you, and I got an abusive message about a cure, and it was pretty horrible. But I developed a thicker skin as well, as a result of this journey. And obviously I get to meet amazing people like you and Michelle and Janine and Kelly and all the people I've spoken to. And yeah, it's really, like you say, we're building this community, and I know you've spoken to Kelly, and we're going to be doing this thing, which is really just in its infancy right now, but I'm really excited about that. So yeah.
I think it's just been lovely. I mean, David connected me with this amazing lady called Kelly, who's in America, that you've spoken to. And it was just really, really bizarre. And when I spoke to this week, and we just got on so well. And what we realized is, just by asking one new question, suddenly, so what we were originally going to speak about, we spoke about. And then we just got on to just one little question, opened up a whole new avenue of other things that we have massively in common. So Kelly's really into making all natural remedies to use around the house and the home, safe cleaners, safe things to use on your body, safe things to use with your children and animals, which is a real passion of mine as well. And what you realize is when you do open up those little doors and keep an opening, questioning mind, all these gifts come flooding through to you. It's just absolutely brilliant, but it's so easy to close them down. And one of the things I've had to really, really learn over the last year, I don't know if you use the saying in Australia, but in the UK, we sort of say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, we do.
And what that really means is, like, you know, say you and I were having a conversation and there was one thing that I didn't agree with what you said. There's no need for me to dismiss everything else, because one, we don't have to agree about everything, but two, we're at different levels of consciousness. And, you know, you might be seeing something that I'm not ready to see yet. So it doesn't mean that one of us is right and one of us is wrong. And there's so many, I've seen so many people get so negative because they might be listening to someone that they've been listening to for 6 months and they've really enjoyed it. And then they'll say one thing that they disagree with, and suddenly all the insults happening. You're like, well, hang on a minute. There's so many reasons for that. And also, you don't have to agree with everything. I mean, if I hadn't started down this journey of speaking to people to find out more about the areas that I didn't know about, I'd have a completely different outlook on life to what I had now. But if you're willing to ask the questions and really listen to the answers, then often it can shift your consciousness very, very quickly, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it definitely pays to have an open mind, obviously. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that a lot of, let's call them, you know, the people that aren't seeing what's happening now, that's one of the problems. Everybody thinks they're open-minded, but not really everybody is. And so you put something out about a certain topic, and they'll, instead of looking at the information, they'll look at the person delivering it and then pick out all the things wrong with that person and automatically discount it because of XYZ reasons, you know? And it's stupid, but it's the way that they've been trained, you know? You know what I mean?
It is.
Like when Mr. T talked about HCQ last year, you know, people, I spoke to somebody about how our government's banned it, and some of the other ones, the other helpful cures, and I didn't mention anything about Mr. T. And the only thing that person could say to me, even though I told them that the government banned it and doctors are being silenced and all these different things, that person still said, "Is that the thing that Mr. T talked about?" Because
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you care that the government's banned it? You know, don't you care that these doctors are being silenced? Is that's the only thing that you can come up with? You know, like, it's not even, it doesn't have anything to do with anything, you know?
It is, and it's really made me yeah, that raises a really good point, because so many of these medical professionals, virologists, health experts have been spreading a lot of information for years, and they've all been censored. Half of them have been jailed. Some of the others have come to very unfortunate sudden ends. And there's this thing that once you're labeled as a quack, mud sticks. But actually, then in hindsight, they're proved to be right. But there's so many people. I've got loads of friends that, for example, Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who brought out years and years ago, about 25 years ago at least, probably, that there was a link between the MMR treatment and autism. And everyone dished him. And then subsequently, he was proved to be completely right. And it was shown that he was exactly right. And the studies did back that up, but they'd been deliberately suppressed. But most of my colleagues, because he was called a charlatan, they still believe, they're not even prepared to go back and look at the new evidence, because once someone's made their mind up about someone or something, it's very, very difficult. And this is why I think it's been so, so well executed from the dark side. Because when you look about what's been fed to everyone through the school system, through the news, through the films, through the songs, through everything, we can see how cleverly orchestrated this has been. But the beauty is once you see the pattern, I think it's like, I'm not clever enough to play chess. I never got past drafts. But, you know, it's a bit like people that play chess or that really high level sports peoples. Once you start seeing the patterns, then you can break the pattern, can't you? It's like the Morse code. You know, as soon as you've grasped that pattern, then you've unlocked this new world and you've broken their code, and therefore you can listen to the enemy's secrets. And that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Because especially when you're looking at the media over the last year, someone in my family, there was a thing on, they've had a few different apps that you can download for your phone, and the first one they came out with was one to be able to trace you, you know, so you
Yeah.
can, I think it was pretty much like a tracker that you would track you wherever you went. And they didn't get much of an uptake. So now they've got this other one where you go and check in at a restaurant or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But when that story came out in the media, someone in my family was saying, "Oh, here's your conspiracy theory." I was like, "It's not really a theory anymore. It's on TV now, you know."
Yes.
And but the thing is that, like you say, is when you've cracked the code, you can just see through all the BS. You don't
Yeah.
even need to, for the January 6th thing at the Capitol. I didn't even hear any of the audio. I was at the gym. And as soon as those shots came on TV, even just the stills, I just knew that they were faked, you know, straight away.
Exactly.
And I didn't even have to hear it. And then someone said, "What do you think about that?" I said, I think it's staged." And they didn't believe it. And then like a day or two later, some photos came out of you know, people, you know, like photos behind the scenes where they had people shooting actually with cameras, you know, setting it all up and stuff. And I sent one of those to them, and they said, "Oh, okay, I see now." Like, but
Yeah.
you know, you just crack the code, and it's like all the mind control just doesn't work on you anymore.
I know. It's just wonderful. And also I think it's really important that we drop this negativity about, you know, calling people sheep. I love sheep, so it's quite an insult. It's quite a compliment to me. But, you know, because the thing is, everyone sees it at different times, and there's a reason for that. So there's so many things that I haven't seen, and then suddenly you see it. So I had a really interesting conversation with someone this morning. So there's news that's coming out that quite a few British Airways pilots have dropped dead. Young British Airways pilots have dropped dead suddenly.
Did you hear that voice clip?
Yeah, I heard that, and of course I couldn't verify that, but it is. And after having taken certain cures, and a huge amount of people have taken the cures. So there's one school of thought. I was having conversation with someone in my family. So I'm saying, look, this is coming out, and we just need to be aware of this because we've got someone that's got to travel very soon. And the other person was saying, well, I know someone at work who works for BA, and they said that's completely normal. That number of people would normally die in that time scale anyway.
Okay.
So both sides of the argument are sort of, you know, sort of saying they could both be true. We don't know at the moment. We don't know.
Yeah.
But it's having an open enough mind to sort of saying, this is interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'm going to look and see what comes out about this. But equally, surely someone would question, there was an official statement that was released and said, yes, the people have died, but there's absolutely no link to the cure. But they can't say that. They can't say that because the thing is, whether if you're a top level footballer or you're a pilot, you have basic safety health checks done, because they have to keep an eye on pilots' health, because obviously they can't have someone flying a plane that's about to drop dead of a heart attack. Now, of course, sometimes that can happen to anyone. But again, it's that sort of saying, well, I wonder, is there something in it or not? And I'm not saying one way or the other at the moment, but they can't say on one respect that everyone who's tested positive has died of the V, and on the other respect that they can immediately, this quickly, say that there's absolutely no link between the pilots and this. You can't have it both ways, can you? So that on its own,
that's what they're doing everywhere, I think.
Yeah, but it should raise for people this curiosity of saying, okay, I can't prove it one way or the other. And then accept that we haven't got any proof one way or the other. The autopsies will show. There's some good autopsy results that have come out recently as well from certain countries. I can't remember which country off the top of my hand, where they found some very interesting things for
all through the organs.
All through the organs and everything. So if there's no link, fine, let's get autopsies done and let's put that open and let's see. And that's fine. And if that shows there's no link, then I'm very happy to listen to that. But just having that open mind and just of saying, well, I'm going to be aware of it and I'm going to watch this and see what happens, because obviously something like that could have a big impact on everyone. No one wants to get on a plane and have their pilot, you know, drop dead halfway through over the Atlantic.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, you know, most people, I don't know, some people, let's say, some people, they don't necessarily care about being right. you know, I wish I was wrong about everything, and that way we wouldn't be living this nightmare, you know. But so, you know, I'm completely happy to accept another version of the story, or another point of view, if it's backed up by something, and
Exactly.
no double standard, you know, because there seems to be a lot of those going around at the moment. And you know, it's if it's convenient, you know what I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I think that's it. I think that's it. And this is why I'm really loving the sort of the fact that this whole censorship issue is really raised to the forefront for people now, because we've got to get back to be able to have good old adult conversations, and be able to have a conversation with someone that's got a completely different perspective to you, and be prepared to both be civil about it and both learn from each other. And it's really, really important. You know, I heard Jean-Claude, who I spoke to this last week, what a lovely man,
Yeah.
you know, talking about this, because some people, sometimes he gets stick on some of his shows for people think he's disagreeing with his guests. And he's like, no, we're just having a really interesting
Yeah.
conversation and exploring different games, but you don't have to agree with everyone. And letting go of this need to be right and having to agree with everyone, it just opens up a whole new world. I mean, both you and I would love absolutely nothing more than for the rumors about the cure to be completely false.
Mm,
I
yeah.
would love those to be inert, helpful things.
Sure.
And I'm still very open to that. And I'm still sort of putting out there an a timeline where that's a possibility, because I don't want any of my loved ones harmed by anything. You know,
Mm,
none of us do. It would be our worst nightmare. But equally, when you keep an open mind and you research things, I also feel I've got loads of things in my toolkit that can help people as well, if they
right.
want it. And so
Yeah.
that's a really good use of time for me. One thing we did want to talk about also, I'm really keen to hear your views on this, is all these cyber attack things that
Mm.
have been coming out. So what's your thoughts on all that? Because we're starting to see some news coming up on those, aren't we?
Yeah, well, 60 Minutes did a story on it just recently here.
Oh, did
So
they? I didn't see that.
yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I just saw snippets of it, and I don't even know if I want to see the whole thing. Just the fact that they're reporting on it is enough for me, you know, because, and actually only last week, I think it was, three of the four big banks, or maybe even earlier this week, went down for about 5 or 6 hours, and people couldn't
Yeah.
get the money out. And that was in Australia. And so these things are already happening, you know,
Mm.
and I'm wondering, is it being set up for a bigger one? Because what's, you know, the World Economic Forum, you know, the guy, you know, the head dude,
Yeah.
that guy, yeah, he's been talking about it
So
for
I
ages.
call him the one out of oh, what do you call it? The evil Austin Powers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Powers character. Yeah, we all know who we're talking about.
yeah.
I
The
can't have
one in the black robe. I mean,
yes.
if that's not a wake up call, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's been talking about it for a long time, and that video came out last year, I believe. But yeah, it's definitely been talked about a lot in the media. I don't know if it's in the. I haven't seen anything in the paper. I
No,
haven't. I don't watch the TV, so I don't know if it's in the news either. But I would imagine that it the two main things they're pushing are that, and also UFOs and aliens. Like they're pushing that
yes.
a bit here too. Are you getting the same thing like with both of
We're
those?
getting a lot of that. So we're getting, again, I'm sort of reliant on quite a lot of people to send me stuff, because I don't sort of watch much news, but I always have snippets. I always look online at the news so I can see what are they pointing out to us now, because
Yeah.
all in plain sight has always been a tactic of the dark side. So they have to tell you what's coming, and then most people, it sort of starts brainwashing them into thinking that this is normal. So
Mm.
we've had definitely about the aliens, we've had, I think there's been some stuff about the cyber attacks, but also there's an awful lot of stuff coming, a lot of stuff over the last month or so about Princess Diana.
Okay. I did notice
Which
one thing. There
really
was one thing
interesting.
here too about Princess Di on the
Yeah.
news.
And I don't know
But
why all of a sudden this is coming out. Well, I do know
I think,
why.
you know, yeah.
But, you know, but it's very odd, because we've not heard anything about her for years, and then
Yeah.
suddenly it's a bombardment of it. So
Yeah.
that really excites me. It really excites me a lot to see that coming out. So I sort of dip in and out, and I heard a really good interview with, do you know Paul Check? He runs the Check Institute, CHEK. He does he's a real health guru. He's an amazing, knowledgeable chap, and he's got a brilliant podcast. And I listened to one yesterday when I was cleaning out my horses and everything, with Paul Check and Mickey Willis, who made Pandemic.
Okay.
And it going through all what had happened about the 6th of January event, and how Mickey Willis, they've been trying to frame him for doing certain things and saying certain things. It's really interesting, because when you listen to that, you realize just how much everything is twisted, and the technology, how we can change everything. I mean, I've seen people where they've been interviewed by, say, Panorama, and when they've been interviewing the person, this happened to someone I personally knew, and this was a long while ago. This was about 20 years ago. So they've been doing it forever. That they interviewed this person and they asked this person a load of questions, and the person obviously answered. Now, when this went out on TV, they put completely different questions.
Okay.
So the answers were given, so it could change the whole meaning of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, that had to be planned. That was planned from the scratch. You couldn't just do that afterwards. That was very cleverly planned to do it. And when you realize how you can corrupt so much, makes you realize the only thing you can really trust is yourself. And with some of these cyber attacks, where I think it makes us realize just how vulnerable we are on everything outside of ourselves.
Yeah. Because I know Janine looked at cyber attacks with Jean-Claude on one of the episodes recently. Did you see that one?
I haven't seen that. I've got so many of theirs to catch up on, and I really want to look at their pay-per-view ones, because they've got some brilliant information in those. I'm actually going away with some friends next weekend, so I might get a bit of downtime to listen to some of this stuff, because there's some brilliant ones they've done under their paywall, because obviously they can't say it out in the public. So I'm going to listen to those as well.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, I mean, I think Janine seems to, I'm also wondering if this cyber attack is actually going to be commandeered by the White Hats, and it's going to be used as do you think that is a possibility? Yeah, and that's going to be the thing. That's going to be the 10 days that everybody keeps talking about. Maybe it's not going to be 10, and maybe it's going to be three or 5 or something, but
I think that's a huge possibility. And again, that's where I make sure that when I'm sort of in my own sort of headspace, I look at these things that are coming, and then I sort of say to myself, right, what's the best possible outcome that we can manifest from this? And that would be a perfect example. So the best possible manifestation is, yes, these cyber attacks are coming, but they're going to have been hijacked by the good guys for positive. And
well, I hope so, because you can imagine, you saw what happened with the toilet paper last year. If there's something like that, it's going to be absolute pandemonium. Like,
it would be complete pandemonium and send people into such panic, you know. And, you know, things like the power grid as well. I mean, look what happened in Texas with the power grid and how horrific that was for everyone. And, you know, there's an awful lot of, I think it's making people really take a good look at their lives and thinking, right, okay, you watch on the telly and these war zones going on in other countries and everything, but how dependent am I, and how could I minimize this and sort of make sure I'd be all right in some of these scenarios?
And not to be too complacent, because a lot of people, especially in first world countries, it's not going to happen to us, you know.
Oh, completely.
But it absolutely can and will, you know.
And look, one of the biggest eye openers for me on that was the Yugoslavia situation, because when I was growing up, you know, Brits went on holiday to Yugoslavia a lot. It's the most beautiful place. I can't remember what they're called. Well, it's all called now. My husband will shoot me because my geography is so bad. And then they went into war. And
you're going to learn a whole new geography anyway in a few months.
Exactly, I'm going to learn a whole new geography. So thank God I missed out that bit. It's certainly not my strong point. But you know, and then that was a real shock to people of my age, where you suddenly realize that all these people living a normal Western life like we were, and suddenly absolute war zone and terrible things they went through. And you sort of, I think that complacency is really important. So not be complacent, be prepared, look after, have preparations in place for your loved ones, if you've got elderly relatives, if you've got animals, etc., if you've got people with special needs, etc. But also to really appreciate how lucky we are to have the standard of life that we do have, and that we're not being affected by this. And I think, you know, there's not a single person on the planet probably that hasn't been affected by this in some way over the last year. And it's really starting hitting home, and it is human nature. If it doesn't affect us, we don't tend to, we can watch it and sympathize. We might donate a bit of money to a charity, but quite often that's where it ends for people. And one of the things that I always think, so anyone who's got horses or a wild animal, or even, you know, a rescued dog that's had to fend for themselves, for example, most animals hate being put in a confined space, because once you've trapped them in somewhere, they can't look after themselves. They're powerless. They're under your control. And I think that's a really good lesson for us humans, is we've accepted that it's absolutely fine to be controlled, that we can't get access to our money. You know, most people think that they could go in and get access to their money at any time.
Yeah, but that's not how the banking.
Realize that we can't.
That's a good point, because just recently, I think it was last week, they released there's two things I want to say. Actually, that the PM here and one of the premiers were on TV together, and one of the premiers, I'll turn my background off because you might not be able to see it. One of the premier was doing this with her hands. It was really weird. Like it wasn't like that, but it was like really creepy, like claw-like things. And the Prime Minister, it's like his hand was like this, but his finger was kind of hidden in there somehow, and it looked really odd. And he was doing this, and it was almost as if they're both drawing attention to their hands for some reason. I don't know why. And then another premier who had to fall down the stairs. I'm not sure if you know that story.
Yeah,
you do. He was filmed saying he's going to come back soon, and he was doing this too. And so, and then later that week, they had an article about how the banks can do bail-ins and they can take your money. So I really think that they're pointing a lot of stuff out to people, for people to realize what's going on. Because if you can, you know, if you don't, for people that don't know how the banking system works, when you deposit money, a deposit is not a good thing. First of all, you're giving them an unsecured loan, and they can do whatever the hell they want to your money, unless you do your own T's and C's and tell them how you want to do it, how you want the terms and conditions to be with your money. Then they do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people very scared. You know, money is such a driver for our society, isn't it? But on the good side of things, we've got to work out, there's so much, and there's definite evidence that there's so much going on with this good financial reset as well. So I just think we've all got to keep putting our mindset to the fact that that's going to be the one that's going to succeed. We've just got to, because the other alternative is just too awful.
Yeah, well, you think about the Great Reset, which was actually supposed to happen in January this year, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that hasn't happened yet. So that's a good thing. We're already in June. So that's, hopefully that means it's not coming, and it just hasn't been delayed 6 months or 12 months, because, and, we always talk about the white hats and the whole plan, and there's so many facets to it. And a lot of people will say that, some of the psychics will say it's so multi-layered. There are so many compartments. It's all compartmentalized. It's difficult to know exactly what's what. But if you just look at certain things, and if you look at the whole NWO plan that was supposed to happen from last year to 2030, it's all being condensed so fast now, and when things are rushed, they fail. So take some comfort in the fact that, yes, things do look bad, in some places. People are dropping dead and having adverse reactions from certain things that we can't talk about. But and there's a bunch of other things happening as well. But the plan is not really working out how they wanted it to, because first of all, they're rushing it, and second of all, they're waking a lot of people up because they're rushing it, because
they really are, and
revealing their hand too early.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps when you were saying about them rushing it and the timescales, because that ties into the whole theme of our conversation today about our perception of time and the fact that it is speeding up. But it's like, I'm so fascinated to learn more about the concept of time. Perhaps
And
I'll
timelines, yeah.
well, once I accept and let go to that attachment, because it's really annoying for me not having a watch. But yeah, that is true. And you've got the both sides, and you've got sort of you've got the white hat, so sort of slowing things down, because, and that again, for someone like me, I'm really impatient. My friends call me hurry up, you know, I like everything to be done quickly.
Yeah.
But this has been brilliant for me, because I wouldn't have grasped the intricacies of it all. And you know, who wants to hurry up through their lives? You want to actually take time, take stock, enjoy every moment, but live in the present moment, etc. So I can really see why they've slowed down and why it hasn't been able to, because I wouldn't have embodied, if all of the good changes had happened too quickly, everyone would have gone straight back to their old behavior patterns, wouldn't they, after this? And no one would have made any changing. Whilst I think the way it's going now, you can really see there's going to be some really deep and really positive changes for everyone on the planet, really. And you know, luckily for our poor animals as well, that have been trying to tell us all this. We'll have to do different hand signs. My hand signs are this. Now I would get calls of going the white rabbit, but I'm not white, I'm a green rabbit today. So Coco wants to speak to your cat, you say. She won't leave us alone.
I think my
today.
cat's actually at the door. Do you want me to grab her?
Yeah, go and grab her. Let's go get your cat, and they can have a little cat talk conversation. Hey, Coco, look. Coco's gorgeous. She's sopping wet at the moment. She's one of my 5 cats. But if you think I'm restraining her, it's just because what she normally does when I'm on video call, I've got my laptop just up on the... Oh my God.
This is not the black one, obviously.
The black one. So who is this? Tell us who this is.
This is Amber.
Amber. Oh my God, Amber. Meet Coco. Amber is absolutely beautiful. How many cats have you got, David?
2. So
2.
we had a ginger one like this a while. It was like 11 years ago now, and when he passed away, we wanted to get another ginger one to replace him, but and then we went to the Cat Haven, and they said you could have 2 for the price of 1, so we got 2. And
that's what we always do. My lovely cat rescue place that unfortunately isn't open anymore, I always used to go away and they'd see me coming, and I'd never choose. I'd always say, just give me who I need to have, because they knew me quite well, because I've had so many over the years. I've got 5 at the moment,
5
but
cats.
we're normally 6, so there's room for 1 more. But I had one that looked just like Amber that was called Wilbur, and he was amazing. It was really sad. We live in the middle of nowhere and he got run over. I was completely heartbroken. But he had the best life anyway. But what I used to really love is every night when I was calling him in for tea, I used to call out the door saying, "Where's my ginger Willie?" Because he was door. And all the neighbours were like, "Catherine, it's not funny anymore. We've had that joke before." And then my neighbour's husband's called Steve, and we had another cat called Steve. And I used to say, "Come on, Steve, come to bed now." But I thought it was funny, but they didn't. But cats are just amazing, aren't they? Everyone should have cats. But I have to restrain you, otherwise you knock my computer over, you little horror. But what we were saying, the timelines are an interesting one, and everyone's going to be feeling it sort of very differently. I think the friends and family, and I think anyone who's sort of worried about people that are on different stages of understanding to them, I think the positive of that is it really makes you realize how valuable these people, these loved ones are in your life. And I think a lot of my friends have been doing lots of extra research to really see how they can help them and things, which is really positive if they want the help, of course. So again, it's like always looking at what's the positive that can come out of this. But for me, I needed it to happen slowly so that I really embodied it all personally.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because people do. I kind of sometimes I think if people haven't got it by now, maybe they won't ever get it, and there's an element of truth to that. But I also know that some people, some family members of mine, who 6 to 9 months ago didn't believe it, that it was a scam. Now know that it's absolutely is. Yeah.
Wow.
So, which is great. And I had this thought today. there's there's like three kinds of people in this world. There's people who get it, people who don't, and people who they kind of, they can see what's going on, but they just, because when you're changing your thought patterns and your beliefs, it's an extremely difficult thing to do. And
It is.
so it's so difficult to come to terms with the fact that you've been lied to, for one, and that the people that are lying to you are, trying to push this thing on you and all this stuff. And it takes a lot of introspection at the same time, because you kind of go, well, has this always been the case? Has it always been like this? And if so, how come I didn't see it for the last 40 years or whatever it is, And
Absolutely. And I think that's where people need to be really gentle on themselves, don't you? And realize that this has been incredibly well orchestrated. And so it's not your fault,
no, it's not your fault. No.
Not your fault at all. And anytime you do it, I look back, I work in animal health a lot. And when I first left home and I first got my first 2 rescue cats, and I used to feed them tinned food from the supermarket because the vet said that was really good. And that's what I did. And I thought I was doing the right thing. And I used to take them for annual injections and things like this and everything. And now I look back at myself and I can't believe what consciousness I was in. But at the time, I was doing exactly the best thing I did with the level of knowledge I had. And then once someone woke my mind up to it and I realized more, then I changed. And, you can't waste too much time feeling guilty, because we do the best we can with the knowledge we've got. But what you're hoping for is then all the time, every minute of every day, we're all learning new things, whether we're conscious of it or not. And you hope then when you learn something new that really resonates with you as truth, whether you can explain it or not, that you'll make some change based on that.
What do you feed your cat now? What do you feed your cat?
So now, my 5 cats are a nightmare. They're so fussy because all of mine have come to me as adult rescues. So they all have different ones. 2 out of my 5 cats will eat raw food. So they have raw turkey, raw chicken, raw poultry liver. They have sardines. They have white fish. And 3 of the others won't eat raw. So they have cooked organic chicken that I put some chicken liver with. And they have cooked white fish, and they will eat tinned sardines in water. And then I give them supplements as well to counteract the things. I try and give them a good variety. And actually, I'm putting together, I've got a really, really, really good friend, a German vet called Dr. Tima Tastenar. And we're just putting together over the next couple of weeks some really good basic dog nutrition course and cat nutrition course. So whether people want to feed them raw or cooked, they can sort of look, what can I home prepare for them to make sure they're getting the right nutrition and not all these awful contaminants. We've got an awful situation in the UK at the moment. I know this is off tangent, but it's really applicable actually to what we're speaking about, where a lot of the dried cat biscuits have been found to be killing cats. There's a problem with the synthetic vitamin and mineral supplements in them that come from China. And we've had this a lot with dog food in the past. It was a big thing in America about 5 years ago. Yeah. And all these cats are dying because these certain makes of cat food that people feed them. And the reality is, this goes back to the whole point of what's been happening this last year. If you buy, I haven't got anything I can pick up and show you, but if you buy a bag of biscuits for your cat and you actually look at the ingredients on them, you've got no control over those ingredients at all. If you go and buy a fresh bit of chicken or a fresh bit of fish, at least you've got some control over what they're eating. Because what's been proven, unfortunately, time and time again, is this processed stuff can have stuff in there that's really harmful, because they all put these synthetic vitamin and mineral mixes in, because the way the food's produced, they basically kill all the nutrients and then they add synthetic nutrients back in at the end. And a lot of these synthetic mixes come from China, and a lot of what they say in the analysis is in them is not. And you can kill animals, and they have done, by getting this mix wrong. And the people who are just adding that mix to the rest of the ingredients have no idea it's wrong until animals start dying. So it goes back to the good old basics. Take back control of your health, of your animal health. And if it doesn't look like food, it's not food.
Yeah, it's funny. Not funny, but it's interesting that we have the same problem with our food as humans. If you buy certain things, and so it's like, I'm not at all surprised, that it's turned out that way for cats and dogs. as well. You know, because of the way the whole world works, and the whole world, you know, it's been set up that way.
Yeah.
You know, everything's
Yeah.
done on purpose. There are no accidents.
Exactly, unfortunately. And, you know, I think all of these lessons are just little snippets of reminding us and reminding us and reminding us, and sort of say, yeah, convenience is lovely. And we're very lucky to live in a time when we have got a lot of conveniences available to us. But it's always looking at what cost. You know, we all know that if we eat processed food all the time and shove it in the microwave, it might be quick and easy, but what are you getting back in return? It's that sort of return on investment, was when you lovingly prepare a meal with fresh local ingredients, you're getting vibrationally and nutritionally, you know, a completely different experience. There's one other thing that I really wanted to cover before we finish. You brought this up beforehand. We both saw those videos of sort of explosions going off in Niagara Falls and other places, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was fascinating, wasn't it?
It was. And if I remember correctly, I think the woman's been living there for 15 or 20 years, and
Yeah.
she said it doesn't sound like fireworks to her. It's interesting because there were some videos that I saw of around the time, you know, when Melbourne went into the lockdown last year.
Yeah.
And at that point when that happened, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I think it might have been around that. We all went into lockdown in March, and then we got out for, you know, we all got out at around the same time, but then Melbourne
Yeah.
went in again in like July maybe, or something, or August. And it's when that happened, I was like, I bet they're doing some sort of, at that point I was kind of a bit more wise about certain things that are happening around the world, and I was like, I bet they're doing some sort of operation. And then only 2 days later, I heard Charlie Freak talking about it, and about the tunnels and stuff. And then a few weeks later or something, because that was a long time. And then a guy released a video similar to that one, that the Niagara Falls one, where he was out there it was like 1 a.m. or something, and he was talking to his
Yeah.
neighbor, and all these explosions going off. He was like, "Can you hear that?" It's like, it's really weird. Like, I don't know what it is. And
Yeah.
and it was right in the area that people, I've seen another video where people were driving past these places, you know.
Yeah.
And I'd actually been to that area once when I lived in Melbourne, and
Yeah.
it's kind of quite far from the city, but it was interesting. Yeah. So I hope it's something good, you know.
I hope it's
It
something
seems very
good.
odd. It seems very
Yeah,
odd, doesn't it?
exactly. One thing I would say, David, after this, just send me the shareable link for your Telegram channel, because
Okay.
I've joined your channel and you share some really good ones. So both David and I have got Telegram channels, and we're both sharing sort of some really good information on there, because at the moment it seems to be the sort of safest platform to share information. So if you send me your link, I'll put it below the video for people. So I would really encourage people to join, because what I like about yours, it's not bombarded with loads of rubbish either.
Yeah, I'm very selective with what I forward.
Yeah,
Because I also don't like waking up to 45 messages from that one
exactly.
channel, or 60 messages, or 120. So I kind of just, you know, maybe
The same here.
four to
I'm
five a
very,
day, you know,
yeah,
something like that.
I'm
And
very selective as well. And I've got a nice friend, Andrea, who's helping with mine at the moment, because I'm just struggling to sort of do everything. So that really helps. But, you know, I think with both of ours, you're not going to be bombarded. But when we see something really good, we put it on there. And it's the easiest way, I think, at the moment to get the message out. So,
yeah, I agree.
well, I think you're looking really, really well. And I think you're sounding really well. And I think, I don't know, I just, there's always just a really lovely, calm balancedness about you, David. I really like it. It's always such a pleasure to speak to you, because you're so knowledgeable, but also you put it across always in a very positive way, and a calm way, and not sensationalized, which I always come on calls with you feeling really good and feeling really positive, and I think that's really important.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel the same.
Oh, and we've both got lovely cats, so
Yeah, I'll have
I
to
can't.
find the other one next time.
Yeah, next time. Well, I can tell me that Coco always finds me. Every single time I do it, we've had loads of rain over here. And the nice thing is all the cats around, because in the summer, normally they're out sleeping in the bushes everywhere. It's just beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I love it, the fact that she always comes and joins in. And yeah, fantastic animals. I love anyone that's got cats. You know, someone's a good person, they've got cats.
Yeah, I'm a big
But
cat person.
oh, you just can't beat them, can you? You really can't. I mean, I love all animals, but cats are, there's something very special about cats, aren't there?
Yeah, and they're also very independent. So you don't necessarily need to, not like a dog. We have a dog too, but they're not so, you don't have to, you can, you know what I mean? They're just,
Yeah, I know exactly
they
what you
do
mean.
their own thing.
Are really cross with me because I'm late taking them out from their walk because of this call. So I will be going in now, going off on a gorgeous dog walk with them. But thank you so much for your time. I'll get this up later on today because I'm going to go for a dog walk and then go and see my mum. And yeah, let's keep sharing things and catch up in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully.
Yeah, sounds
and I'm
good.
sure it'll be better and be able to join us then. So yeah.
Perfect.
All right, lots of love. Have a great day.
All right, Catherine, have a good walk. See ya.
Bye.